What's up, everybody? Bloody history. Continuing on with this Warren Commission interview of Bernard Weissman, the man responsible for placing the Mr. Kennedy ad in the newspaper. Just going to pick up right from where we left off. Were you in the Dallas downtown business district anytime on the 23rd? I don't think so. No, as a matter of fact, I didn't get around to the business district until we went into the outer edge of the downtown area to get to the post office to pick up the letters. That's right. On the 23rd, you went to the post office box and picked up the 60-odd letters you had that you had at home in New York. That's right. And then we went directly back to the apartment and opened these letters. That's all you did in the downtown area? Yeah, so far as I can recollect. Approximately what time of the day was that? That was in the morning. That was early in the morning, about 8 or 9 o'clock, I guess, in the morning. Did you receive any telephone calls at your apartment that day? I received, Larry called us, I know. I don't recall what was said. It was like, what's happening? Everything okay? On Monday, I received a letter. Excuse me, have we now accounted from the time you got up Saturday morning until the time you went to bed that evening? I don't recall. Bill and I might have gone out for a hamburger a couple blocks away. We didn't go anywhere near downtown. We might have gone to Larry's apartment that night. I'm not sure. The 22nd, we picked you up in your car with Mr. Burley around 12:30. Now, what happened that morning? That morning? Yes, the 22nd. Where were you the morning of the 22nd up till about 12:30 in the afternoon? Let's see, I left the apartment at, I guess it was about a little after 9. We had a 10 or 10:30 sales meeting scheduled, or 9:30. Anyway, I got there on time for the sales meeting. That was the carpet company by which you were employed. Exactly. Name it. Carpet engineers. And you had obtained that job when? About a week after arriving in Dallas. And that was located where? 1002 South Beckley in the Oak Cliff section of Dallas. In Oak Cliff. That's right, on Beckley. On Beckley. What was the address? 1002. I know what you're getting at. Oswald also had a room on Beckley, but he was on the opposite extreme. I think he was on North Beckley. I was on South Beckley. Give us the distance approximately between the location of the carpet company by which you were employed, which is on South Beckley, and Oswald's address on North Beckley. At least a few miles. I don't know. I've never been on North Beckley. I had never been on North Beckley. At no time while you were in Dallas were you ever on North Beckley. Not as far as I know, unless I got lost and didn't know where I was, but as far as I know, I've never been there. And you were a salesman of carpeting. That's right. Did you ever sell any carpeting? Not a one. Did you make any effort? I made a lot of effort. This is where most of my money went for gas and things like that. Your associate, Mr. Burley, was he a salesman for this company also? He quit about 2 weeks, about several days before the 22nd, and he was looking, of course, one had to make money. We were both blanking out with carpets. I take it, however, he had been employed by the same carpet company. Yes, sir. You made application together, did you? Yes, sir. And you were both employed at approximately the same time. That's right. But he left the carpet company before you did. That's right. And I understand you attended a sales meeting at the carpet company the morning of the 22nd. That's right. When did that sales meeting break up? 12:30 for me. It was still going when I left. I left at 12:30 because I had this afternoon appointment and also this meeting with Larry. I had talked to the sales manager after that. I had, what's his name? Frank DeMaria. And I asked him if he had been questioned by the FBI, and he said yes, they'd been around. And I said, what'd you tell them? And he mentioned at the time, he says, we thought you left about 12 o'clock. And I said, what are you trying to do? And anyway, this is the way it went, but I know I left at 12:30. They were embroiled in a big discussion, and they were not cognizant of the time. I was. All right, now would you tell us what you did on the 24th? Went to pick up mail in the morning, went back to the apartment. You picked up mail in the morning on Sunday. That's right, the post office was open Sunday morning. You went to the post office on the 23rd, which is Saturday, and you also returned No, I didn't go to the post office on Saturday the 23rd. I misunderstood you then. No, I'm almost positive it was Sunday morning. I know it wasn't Saturday. I'm positive, almost positive it was Sunday morning. That's when you picked up the 50-odd letters you referred to. Right. It was the day that you heard that Ruby had shot Oswald, was it? I'm getting a little confused now. I think I might be one day. All right, so remember all the things we talked about over the past 2 days. How this guy he was drafted into the army for 2 years. He's in Germany. While he's in Germany, he sets up this organization, this pro-right-wing organization, with 5 guys from his unit and 1 guy who's a civilian whose father was stationed there, right? And then these guys, but he doesn't ever mention that guy's name. Okay, so then these guys come back to Dallas, and so once he gets to Dallas, they engage in trying to infiltrate all these right-wing organizations. This is CIA activity, okay? This is clearly CIA activity. And now here this guy can't remember a goddamn thing. Oh, it was Sunday. He just told the guy for 2 pages how this thing happened on Saturday, and then all of a sudden, oh no, it's on Sunday, right? So this is completely and totally anti-interrogation training going on. No, I'm almost positive it was Sunday morning. I know it wasn't Saturday. I'm positive, almost positive it was Sunday morning. That's when you picked up the 50-odd letters. Right. It was the day you heard Ruby shot Oswald. I'm getting a little confused now. I think I might be one day. See if we can orient you. The assassination of the president occurred on the 22nd of November, 1963, which is Friday. Right. Then there was Saturday. Then on Sunday, the 24th, occurred the shooting of Lee Harvey Oswald by Jack Ruby. Yes. Now, with those events in mind, when did you go to the post office box? Well, now I know it was not Monday. Now I'm back in perspective. I'm almost definitely sure it was Sunday morning. You said earlier it was Saturday. You said it was the day after the ad appeared. That night, you went the next day. No, couldn't have. That was an error. Yes, it was Sunday. All right. Now, on further reflection, your recollection is reasonably firm now that you did go to the post office box on Sunday rather than Saturday. I'm almost positive it was Sunday morning. You're equally positive it was not Monday. It might either be. I remembered there was an awful lot of traffic, and I don't know if the traffic was because everybody was driving through downtown to go around the Houston Viaduct to see the scene of the assassination or what. And this is what is confusing me now. That is why I'm not sure if it was Sunday morning. It might have been Monday morning. I doubt it, but it might have been. But it was early, yes. Around 8 o'clock? 9 o'clock, yes. I was asking you to account for your comings and goings and your whereabouts on Sunday the 24th, and in the course of doing that, in referring to the morning, you mentioned that you had gone to the post office box. Now, what did you do thereafter? Went right back to the apartment. Did Mr. Burley accompany you? Yes, and another fellow. Kenneth Glasbrook. Who's he? He's a fellow associated with CUSA, but never really. What kind of statement is that? This is a fellow associated with CUSA, but never really. He came in as a matter of fact. Yes, I had forgotten about him. President Kennedy was assassinated on Friday. Ken Glasbrook arrived in town by bus on Friday night. We went to the bus station to pick him up. You knew he was coming? Yes, please identify him. Ken Glasbrook. Yes, who was he? Ken's what you might call a world traveler. This is a guy, he's a political science, he's a master's in political science from UCLA, I believe. And we hope to bring him in as our political analyst. Had you met him in the service? In Germany, yes. Larry met him at one time originally. Ken was passing through Munich, and he had stopped off at our favorite bar and gotten into a discussion with Larry, and he had been through Munich after that 2 or 3 times at one location, which I met him, and he had also said, I will meet you in Dallas. But he came and he went. He stayed with Bill and I for a couple of days at our apartment because he was on his way home to California. From what I understand now, he's back in Europe. He could not take it here. I'm still accounting for Sunday. You went to the post office box, you think. You went to the bus station to pick up. I'm not sure whether this was, I'm pretty sure it was Friday night that we picked him up at the bus station. Might have been Saturday night. I'm more sure in my mind. My inclination goes to more towards Friday night. Okay, nobody in the fucking world remembers shit like this, okay? Nobody. And this is only like a year later, all right? So this ain't like 10 years later. This is a fucking year later. And you notice how he's just bouncing back and forth in his recollection? This guy's pissing me the fuck off. Oh, no, I'm sure it was Friday night because it was after the assassination. He came in Friday night. And then, oh, no, well, it might have been Saturday night. Who knows? But it might have been Friday night. I'm pretty sure it was Friday night, right? Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Nobody's this fucking stupid. This is stupidity on purpose. So that tells me he has more of an involvement in this assassination than I know of. You saw him on Sunday. Ken, did you see this man on Sunday? He was in the apartment with us. He came to stay with you. Yes, he brought a pitcher and a knapsack. Did he go down to the post office box with you? Yes. And he returned to your apartment? Yes. What'd you do then? We went through the letters. We were going pro and con and reading them, and we were very pleased at first because a lot was favorable, and then we got to the later postmarks, and those were terrible. We just discussed the letters for a while, and a girl came over. What was her name? Lynn something. I don't know her last name. And then she sat around and talked for a while. We discussed the letters with her. Then Larry came over that afternoon also. She was wearing a turtleneck sweater, and we stayed around for a few hours. Then Larry and Lynn took off to the Ducarmi Club, and thereafter, I don't know what happened to them. I did not hear from them at all, and that's about it for Sunday. When did you first hear about the Ruby Oswald incident? I think Larry called me up. Yes, he was watching television at the Ducarmi Club, I believe. I believe this was the occasion. I think he was with Lynn, and he telephoned me at the apartment, and that was the story. You've testified you were never in the Carousel Club. Never. What, if any, acquaintance did you have with Officer Tippit? None. What, if any, acquaintance did any of your associates have with Officer Tippit? Absolutely none. Have you ever heard the name Officer Tippit? Never. Up to or any time during the day, November 22nd, 63? None at all. First I ever heard his name was after Oswald shot him, and it came over the TV that a policeman had been shot near a movie theater. That was the first I had heard the name. Do you know whether any of your associates, Schmidt or Burley or Jones or any person you've mentioned knew Officer Tippit? To the best of my knowledge, no. Did anything occur during that time you were in Dallas to lead you to believe any of these people, including Mr. Grinnan, for example, had any connection with or association or knowledge or acquaintance with Tippit? Not as far as I know. I don't know too much about Joe Grinnan. Did you at any time while you were in Dallas ever have a meeting with or sit in the Carousel Club with Officer Tippit? No. Do you know or do you have any information as to whether any of the associates you've mentioned ever had a meeting with Officer Tippit at the Carousel Club? None whatsoever. Or whether or not, irrespective of whether it was a formal meeting, even an informal one, that they were with Officer Tippit at any time in the Carousel Club? Absolutely not. And you were never in the Carousel Club at all, and you never were with Officer Tippit. Right. Any place. Mr. Weissman, it has been asserted that a meeting took place on November 14th, 1963 in the Carousel Club between Officer Tippit and yourself. And I take it from your testimony that you vigorously deny that ever took place. Very definitely. May I say something in relation to this? Is it pertinent to this? I believe so. I believe that this is a statement made by Mark Lane, who claimed to be an attorney for the deceased Oswald. It was originally made at the town hall in New York, and later that same evening, I do not recall the date exactly, on a radio program, Contact WINS New York, about midnight of that same day. At that time, I telephoned the radio station and spoke to Mark Lane. This is the first time I had heard of the allegation at all. You telephoned the radio station? Right. And you asked for Mr. Lane? That's right. Did the man whom you asked come to the phone? Yes, he did. Had you known Mr. Lane prior to this time? Never heard of him before. Had you never spoken to him? Never. Did you ask when there was an answer on the phone? Did you ask who it was that was on the phone? I said something to the effect of, "Hello, Mr. Lane?" What did the voice on the other end of the phone say? He said, yes, something. Did you identify yourself? Yes, I did. Did you identify yourself before or after you asked whether the voice was that of Mr. Lane? I identified myself. I called the radio station, and it was a telephone thing that was broadcast over the air. Question and answer. You telephone in a question, and he answers. So I telephoned, and just by luck, I happened to get through on the first ring, and somebody said, "Who's calling?" And I said, "I'd like to speak with Mr. Lane. This is Bernard Weissman calling, chairman of the American Fact-Finding Committee," which he's already admitted isn't real. And so I got him on the phone because they could not pass this up. And I told him, I identified him, that you are the attorney for the assassin Oswald. This is just what I said to him. What did he say? He said, He murmured in agreement, did not say emphatically, yes, I am, but he said, something to that effect. And I said, I know what you're trying to do. I think you are hunting for headlines, but you had been talking to some liar in Dallas who's been feeding you all this baloney about me. You are making all these allegations at the town hall and now on radio, and you've never taken the trouble to contact me. My name has been in the paper. It is very well known where I live. I am in the phone book. You could have at least tried to contact me. And I pinned him up against a wall verbally, and he agreed at that time. And what did he say? He said that he had no definite proof, that he would have to check on it. Proof of what? Proof of the allegations. Did you mention what the allegation was when you talked with him on the phone? Yes, I did. What did you say? Said, you're alleging that I had a meeting with Patrolman Tippett in Jack Ruby's bar with some unidentified third person about a week before the assassination. I said, you're going strictly on the story of some liar in Dallas. I said, if you had any courage or common sense or really wanted to get to the facts, you'd have called and asked me too. And he agreed, yes, he should have talked to me. Did he say, yes, he should have talked to you? Yes, and that would have also rechecked his facts in Dallas, and that ended the essence of the conversation. Have you exhausted your recollection as to that conversation? As to that conversation, yes. When you adverted to his assertion in the town hall meeting that you had been present in the Carousel Club in a meeting with Officer Tippett, did you say that you denied that you were ever in the Carousel Club? I denied that, yes. That was what you said? I said, I do not know Lee Harvey Oswald. I do not know Jack Ruby. I've never been in the Carousel Club. And you said that to him over the telephone on that occasion. That's right. What was his response to that? This is when he came up with he would have to recheck his facts and he would have to check into it. Subsequently, I had to talk to him later that same evening. The show went off at 1 a.m. in the morning, and I had been given a private number to call at the radio station. I talked to him on the telephone. How did you get that number? The announcer gave it over the air, and he said, if you want to speak with Mr. Lane, because I was getting pretty hot. You mean angry? Angry, yes. He said, if you want to talk to Mr. Lane, call him after the show is over. About 5 after 1, I forget the number of the station, and I telephoned him. You called him again at the same number? Yes. You asked for Mr. Lane? Yes, I did. And somebody responded. Mr. Lane got on the wire. Was it the same voice? Yes. What did he say in the way of acknowledging that it was Mr. Lane? I went into it again. Did you say Mr. Lane? Yes. And the voice's response was, I said, hello, Mr. Lane. And he said, I said, hello, Mr. Lane. And he said, yes. This is Bernie Weissman or Mr. Weissman. And he said, yes. And then I reiterated what I had said and that he'd better check his facts. And I'm going to get a hold of some friends in Dallas to check on your witness and find out who he is. And then Mr. Jenner says, please identify these people. He says, I was saying this to Mark Lane. And Mark Lane repeated again, please say again what you said to Mr. Lane. And then what his response was, because with the rapidity with which you speak, it is difficult to sort out his words from yours. Well, it might be well if you started over again. You called the station, you asked for Mr. Lane, and a voice responded, yes. Then you said Mr. Lane, and he responded, yes. All right, now carry on from there. I told him he had better check his facts and that he is off on tangent and that there's absolutely no factual background. For what? For him saying his allegations that I met Mr. Tippett in a bar, in Ruby's bar. Did you repeat that again? Did you repeat again that you had not been in the Carousel Club at any time? I don't know if I repeated it at that time. I just made a point of saying that he better check his facts and talk with me also and get both sides of the story here before he got himself in trouble. By trouble, I had assumed he knew what I meant. I meant a lawsuit, and I would have sued him, but I could not find a lawyer to handle the case. They said any publicity that comes out of it would be only bad, so I dropped it several days later. Have you finished the conversation? I finished the conversation with him. Several days later, I got a hold of his office number. Would you fix the time of this town hall meeting as broadcast best you can? I'm pretty sure it was the 28th or the morning of the 29th on the town hall thing. That was the afternoon of the 28th of April, I believe. I believe it was April. It was prior to his coming to a hearing here at the commission. And in any case, I telephoned him several days after our radio and telephone conversation. I telephoned him at his office in Manhattan and got him on the line again. And I said, well, what has happened? I was very curious as to what he had done about this. Where'd you reach him? At his office in Manhattan. I did not know the address. I had first contacted a law firm he was associated with previously, and they gave me his office number in Lower Manhattan. And I telephoned him at this office. The secretary answered, and he got on the line, and he said, I don't recall exactly what was said before or after this particular part of the conversation, but I said I wanted to meet this guy in Dallas, and the one who told him the story and call him a liar to his face, and I wanted it to be a public meeting, and Mark Lane said he would arrange for a public meeting. He would pay my transportation to Dallas to see this guy as soon as he could arrange a meeting. I've not heard from him since. To check that date you gave us again, Mr. Weissman, Mr. Lane appeared before the commission on Wednesday, March 4th, 1964. March 4th? March? I didn't think it was that long ago. If he appeared in March 4th in the conversation, well, I stand corrected. I'm not positive of the month. It might have been February 28th. It might have been, if it was March 4th he appeared here, it might have been February 28th, because there seemed to be several weeks lapsed between his coming here. Are you certain, however, that your telephone conversation with him the evening of the broadcast following the town hall meeting was before he appeared before the commission? Unless he appeared twice, I'm 100% positive. And from what source did your information come that he had appeared before the commission? Newspapers. I think we can close this. I show you Garner Exhibit number 1. Did you ever see the person who is shown on that photograph? No. I show you Commission Exhibit number 520 and direct your attention to the man in the white T-shirt between the two policemen. Did you ever see him before? No. Prior to November 22nd, 1963, had you ever seen him? Never. And except for these photographs and whatever newspaper clippings or photos you have seen since November 22nd or television shows on after November 22nd, have you ever seen that person in the flesh? Never. Did you ever have any contact with him of any kind? Never. Telephone calls, letters, memoranda of any kind or character? Never. Mr. Chairman, there's correspondence that Mr. Weissman has, and I wonder if it would be convenient with the commission if we could return at 2:30. In the meantime, I'll be able to look at some of the material he has to see if any of it is relevant and helpful to the commission. I would like to adjourn at this time if we can, because I have a luncheon appointment. That is what I'm suggesting, good sir. Good. We'll adjourn until 2:30. All right. Testimony, Bernard William Weissman, resumed. Commission will be in order. You may proceed. During the luncheon hour, Mr. Weissman has afforded us an opportunity to examine some of this correspondence to which he made reference this morning. I've selected a few of these pieces of correspondence as rounding out the genesis of CUSA and its affiliates, Ambus, and the infiltration of the rightist organizations in Dallas that the witness described. I will identify these without reading from them, as some of them are rather lengthy. Very well. First, Mr. Weissman, I have a letter on the letterhead of National Indignation Convention, the top of which has scrawled in ink longhand top secret. It's a 5-page longhand letter. At the bottom of each is written the word destroy. I've marked an envelope postmarked Dallas, Texas on November 5th, 62. As Commission's Exhibit number 1048, the first exhibit being identified as Commission's Exhibit number 1047. The documents referred to were marked respectively Commission's Exhibits numbers 1047 and 1048 for identification. The envelope is addressed to SP4 Larry Jones, APO Station 407, New York, New York. Yes, sir. Do you recognize the handwriting on the envelope? Yes, it's Larry's. And the Larry Jones is the man you made reference to in your testimony? Yes, sir. Document Commission's Exhibit 1047. Do you recognize the handwriting? It appears to be Larry's. Do you recognize it? Yes. And was Document Commission's Exhibit number 1047 enclosed in the envelope marked Commission's Exhibit number 1048? Is there any signature on those documents? This page should be last. On the page which is marked with a circle 7, there appears to be the signature Larry. Do you recognize that signature? That's Larry Schmidt's signature. How did you come into possession of the documents you now identified, one of which was addressed to Larry Jones rather than you? Larry Jones gave it to me. Where? In Munich, Germany. And when he handed the document to you, was Exhibit 1047 enclosed in Exhibit 1048? Yes, sir. Next to the 3-page letter dated Dallas, Texas, January 4th, 63. Addressed to Dear Bernie, is that you? Yes. Marked Commission's Exhibit 1040. It is signed in typing, Larry. A document of 5 pages marked Commission's Exhibit 1041 on the first page, of which appears the signature Larry Schmidt. Do you recognize the signature? Yes, sir. Whose is it? Larry Schmidt. The last of this series of the letter-sized papers is 5 pages, document entitled A Code of Conduct for Members of Conservatism USA, which has been marked Commission's Exhibit 1042. I understand that these 3 documents that I have now identified were enclosed in an envelope, which has been marked Commission's Exhibit 1043 in the upper left-hand corner, L.H. Schmidt, Dallas, Texas. Addressed to Private First Class Bernie Weissman. Is that you? That is me. That is postmarked Dallas, January 4th, 63. Did you receive the documents now identified? Yes, I did. With the first of those 3, were they exhibits I have named enclosed in the documents as Commission's Exhibit 1043? Yes. I've already identified the signature. These documents relate to the development of and plans for CUSA, do they not? They do. And the conduct of CUSA? Yes, sir. The next 2 documents, a 3-page letter, typed on the top, Headquarters Conservatism USA, dated February 2nd, 1963 at Dallas, Texas, which I have marked Commission's Exhibit 1049. This is addressed to all members. It's signed by typing Sincerely Larry. Have you seen that document before? Yes, I have. And was it enclosed in an envelope? It was. Was it sent to you? Yes, it was. Is that document the envelope Commission's Exhibit 1050? That is right. There's handwriting on the face of the exhibit number 1050. Whose handwriting is that? It's mine. Can you read it, please? Meeting with Bob Morris. Infiltration of YAF by CUSA. Mr. Chief Justice and members of the Commission, the 3-page document relates to a meeting held in the home of Dr. Morris. Is that Dr. Robert Morris? That's right, of Dallas, Texas, which recounts the plans for infiltration of conservative groups in Dallas, Texas, upon which the witness has somewhat expanded in his testimony this morning. Has the witness, this is Dulles speaking, has the witness indicated who Mr. Bob Morris was? I don't recall that. Bob Morris at the time was president of the Defenders of American Liberties in Dallas, Texas, and recently was a candidate for political office in Dallas. What office? I believe he was running in the primary for senator. U.S. Senator. I just want to be sure I've covered this. You received both of the documents now marked Commission's Exhibit 1050 and 1049 in due course through the U.S. mail at your station in Munich. Yes, sir, I did. The next series consists of a 2-page letter, which has been marked Commission's Exhibit 1044, addressed to Dear Bernie at Dallas, Texas on June 13th, 63. Also signed, Best Larry. Is that Larry Schmidt again? Yes. The document was enclosed in what? In this envelope here. And the envelope is marked Commission's Exhibit 1046. That's right. For the purposes of the record, Commission's Exhibit 1046 is an envelope postmarked at Dallas, Texas on June 14th, 1963. The envelope is imprinted with Young Americans for Freedom, Inc., Southwestern U.S. Regional Headquarters, P.O. Box 2364, Dallas, 21, Texas, and addressed to PFC Bernie Weissman. That is you? Yes. Was there anything else enclosed in an envelope? I believe it was this. A newspaper clipping from the Dallas Morning News, which has been marked and identified as Commission's Exhibit 1045. Is that right? That's right. The document referred to as marked Commission's Exhibit 1045 for identification. The caption of this reads, Panel reports Birch Society dedicated but not dangerous. Those 3 documents were received by you from Larry Schmidt. That's right. The third is the last of a series dated Dallas, Texas, June 2nd, 63, addressed to Dear Bernie. Also in typing, Larry. Is that Larry Schmidt? Yes. There is some handwriting at the bottom of the letter. Do you recognize it? Larry Schmidt's. Did you receive that document? I did. And was the handwriting of the document when you received it? Yes, it was. Was it enclosed in an envelope? Yes, it was. And you received the mail then? Yes. In the envelope I now show you marked Commission's Exhibit 1037A, addressed to you. Was there something further enclosed with those? I think this piece, which is Commission's Exhibit 1037B. This is a handbill for Young Americans for Freedom, Inc. That's right. You received all 3 documents I have now identified as Commission's Exhibits 1037, 1037A, and 1037B in due course through the U.S. mail. Yes, I did. Next to the last of this series is a letter, single page, marked Commission's Exhibit 1038, dated June 26th, 63, at Dallas, Texas. Addressed to Dear Bernie, signed again in typewriting as Larry. Have you seen that document? Yes, I have. When did you first see it? When I received it in the mail. I show you an envelope marked Commission's Exhibit 1038A. Is that envelope the envelope in which Commission's Exhibit number 1038 was enclosed? Yes. And as a reference, the handwriting on the outside of these envelopes on this and other exhibits that refer to the contents were put on by me about a week ago so I could identify it. Please read what you have written on the face of the Commission Exhibit 1038A. Ready to take over YAF, Jones in Dallas, Ducarmi Club. And that Ducarmi Club is the private club, semi-private club in Dallas that you mentioned in your testimony this morning. Yes. Lastly, a single-page exhibit, Commission's Exhibit number 1039, dated at Munich, Germany on July 31st, 1963. This purports to be a copy of a letter, apparently from you to Larry Schmidt. Is that correct? That's right. And this is a carbon copy of the actual letters. That's right. Did you mail the original of this? I did. To whom? Larry Schmidt. On or about the dates the letter bears? That's correct. On Commission's Exhibit number 1043, which is the envelope which has enclosed several other exhibits, there's some handwriting. Is that yours? Yes. Would you read it, please? Membership List 1962, Code of Conduct and Introduction to CUSA Ultimatum. And that is a shorthand description of the summary or contents of the envelope. Yes. On Commission's Exhibit 1048, which is also an envelope, there appears to be written on the face NIC Infiltration, whose handwriting is at mine. And you put it on there under the circumstances you now related. Yes, sir. I will show you Commission Exhibit 996. Have you ever seen a counterpart of that exhibit, which is titled Wanted for Treason? Never directly. Tell us about your first acquaintance with that, with the circumstances, if you know, of how it came into existence and who had anything to do with it. Well, I can only go by hearsay and what I've seen and what I've heard from other individuals. Did this come to your attention before November 22nd or after? After. Tell what you know, please. I had heard that these handbills were distributed somewhere in North Dallas. I believe on the university campus. I believe it was the University of Dallas campus. From what source did you hear this? Now, I think it was. I'm not sure. I think it might have been Larry or his brother Bob. I'm not sure. Larry declaimed any knowledge of this. I know he had nothing to do with this particular handbill. How do you know that? Oh, he would have told me. That's the basis for your suspicion? Yes, and I saw this handbill or something similar to it in the back of a station wagon used by Larry's brother Bob in transporting. When? This was several days after the assassination. There was one crumpled up in the back, and I happened to look through the window and see it. This was in front of the Ducarmi Club. As a matter of fact, it was one night, and I saw this, and I saw something treason. I had heard about the handbills. From whom? Excuse me? From whom, sir? I think it was Larry. Cannot be 100% sure. I did not take too much interest in it at the time, but in any case, I did see something resembling this, only it seemed to be a larger picture of President Kennedy. But in any case, it was in the back of the station wagon owned by General Walker, Edwin Walker, or by what if incorporated by the corporation he is with the chairman of. How did you know that? Well, I know that Bob was General Walker's chauffeur, and by seeing this crumpled up in the back behind the front seat on the floor of the car, I naturally assumed that it had something to do with General Walker. Exactly what or how, or if he had distributed it, I have no idea. I do not have the faintest idea. I do not go into any further because I felt that everything was past and I was leaving Dallas anyway. I had made up my mind. At this point, Senator Cooper entered the hearing room. When you say that you had heard about this matter, that is the handbill or the handbill similar to it. Had you heard about it before November 22nd, 1963? No, not to my recollection, no. Shortly after? Yes. Before you left Dallas? Yes. Did you have anything to do with the bringing into existence of this or similar handbills? None whatsoever. Other than the possibility of Bob Schmidt having something to do with them under the circumstances you've related, did any others of your group have anything to do with creating this type of literature and distribution of handbills? None that I know of. How about the names of those people who are in on it? On the handbill? Yes. Did you become acquainted at any time with Robert Surrey? No. Robert G. Kloss? No. J.T. Monk? No. Did you become acquainted with any of the Johnson Printing Company? No. Did you have any materials printed? And when I say you, I mean you or your group while you were in Dallas. Not that I know of. I personally have no knowledge of anything being printed. Did you ever hear of the Lettercraft Printing Company? No, I've not. Have you ever heard of the Ashland Frederick Birchwell? No. any contact with him. Not that I know of. I guess I must have met 2 or 3 dozen people. For example, when we went up to Joe Grinnon's office at various times, we would come down and eat in the cafeteria, and there would be somebody sitting with him, and there would be introductions. I never remembered their names because it was just in passing. I never had any personal contact, really. Did you meet General Walker at any time while you were in Dallas? Never did. Did you meet anybody or know anybody by the name of Mercer? No. While you were in Dallas, Mrs. Clifford or Dorothy Mercer? No. Or Mr. Clifford Mercer? Definitely not. Among the exhibits we have identified this afternoon as a list of members, those were the members of the CUSA as of that particular time. Yes. And the changes in membership you have recounted in your testimony this morning, is that correct? Yes. I'm very sorry. I knew I had left something out of one of those. I do not know which exhibit it is, but it is the one that says, I'll hand them back to you, and you can tell me now that you have a sheet of paper in your hand. Yes. I take it that sheet of paper came from one of the envelopes we've already marked. This one here. The answer is yes? Yes. I will mark this sheet as Commission's Exhibit 1051. Would you tell us in what envelope Commission Exhibit 1051 was enclosed? Commission's Exhibit 1043. And what is Commission's Exhibit 1051? Commission's Exhibit 1051 was a current membership list as of about January 4th, 1963. If you like, I can go over this and tell you who was in no way really associated with it at the time or active. Membership in CUSA, said Alan Dulles. In CUSA, yes. It lists Larry Schmidt, Larry C. Jones, Bernie Weissman, Norman Baker, James Mosley as partners. Members as Ken Glasbrook, Bob Weiss, who was not active after about the time this was printed. These men dropped from the active list. Herb Starr was not active. Chuck McLean was not active. Richard Harsh was not active. Tank Tenaro was not active. Sheila McDonald was not active. And the rest of the list were active or in one form or another, some to a much lesser degree than others. Mr. Jenner then says, now, the 50-odd responses that you received to Commission's Exhibit 1031 when you went to the post office box on the following Sunday, the 24th of November, 1963, did you recognize the names of any of the persons who responded? None at all. Was there any response from Jack Ruby? Not under his name. And you say about a third of those responses were favorable and 2/3 unfavorable. That's right. Insofar as the questions asked on Commission's Exhibit 1031 are concerned, yes. When you said there was no letter in the box under the name of Jack Ruby, does that infer that there was one by any other name? Well, to put it very exact, if I did receive a letter from Jack Ruby, I have no knowledge of it. That's what I wanted to know. And apart from, I asked you also the general question whether you recognize any names. I would like to add to that. Did you recognize in reading over any of those letters or responses or any persons, regardless of what name was signed to the document? None whatsoever. During the noon recess, I have had the witness read through an interview with him by the FBI on the 5th of December, 1963. Have you read that? Yes, I have. Does that accurately reflect the interview which the FBI had with you on that day? It does. The only variance you might find is that at the time I had the interview with the FBI, I did not develop the CUSA story with them, and they did not press the issue, and I did not go into it. But it does accurately reflect what took place during the course of that interview. Exactly. What you said, it reports it accurately. Yes, very accurately. Mr. Chief Justice, I was using this method in order to shorten the bounds of Mr. Weissman's testimony. There are many details here that I wanted to spare the Commission. I'll mark that with the next exhibit number, Commission's Exhibit 1052. Mr. Chief Justice, I offer in evidence the exhibits which have been identified. I will read the exhibit numbers, Commission Exhibit numbers 1031 through 1052, both inclusive with some of the envelopes designated with subletters A and one of the other documents designated with subletter B. I ask that those exhibits be admitted in evidence with the exhibit number which appear on them, each of which has been recited in the record. They may be admitted under those numbers. Mr. Jenner said, I have no further questions of the witness. Mr. Flannery, do you have anything? Mr. Dulles, do you have any questions you'd like to ask? Just one general question. From the questions which have been addressed to you, Mr. Weissman, do you have a general idea of what the commission, the area of search of the commission is so far as you are concerned? Yes. Did anything occur to you of any significance which you could add or would like to add to the answers you have made to the questions you are already given? Excuse me, please. There's just one thing, but it is a question of, it is not a positive identification or anything like that, but on the day I went to the post office to pick up the mail, there was a gentleman waiting, observing the post office box in the Dallas post office. Now, Bill Burley was waiting in my car outside, driving around the block because the traffic was quite heavy. I went in with Ken Glasbrook, who had just come to Dallas about a day or so before by bus from the East Coast. He got off a freighter from Sweden, and this individual seemed to be I would put him in about 60 years old, and I thought about it since, and I said it might have been Jack Ruby because he was short enough to be, but my recollection of the individual that followed me when we subsequently lost in the crowd and jumped into the car and took off was that one time not more than 3 feet away from me, though I did not stare into his face because I did not know if this fellow was going to shoot me or say anything. You were frightened, were you not? Yes, sir. And we went across through traffic and up a street and down a street and lost this individual and jumped into the car and took off back to the apartment. And to this day, I do not know whether it was Ruby because, frankly, my recollection of the individual on the pictures I have seen of Ruby in the newspaper, they do not seem to jibe, just the size. This fellow was about 5'6" or so, wearing tan clothing with a Stetson hat, a tan Stetson hat, typical Texas Western hat. Sometimes you call that a 10-gallon. That's right, and this is about the only thing else I have to add. Did he follow you? He followed us from the box down the steps of the post office to the traffic light. We crossed the street. He walked up the other side of the street adjacent to the post office, directly opposite us, and we're going halfway up, and he started to cross the corner. We quickly ran back to the corner across which we came, and at that time, Bill had come around the corner in the car, and he knew nothing about it. And we jumped in, sat down low, and went in a straight line and made the turn and went back to the apartment. And I've never seen the individual since. The post office box from which you were taking the mail was the box that the advertisement was used in the paper. Yes, so that the number of that box was known. Yes, it was. The individual was obviously waiting for me. I did not see him. Ken pointed him out to me. We expected possibly some sort of trouble there, and Ken was walking about 6 feet to the right of me on another side of the post office tables that are up in the middle of the aisle, so if I got in any difficulty, he would be there to help. And he noticed this individual and pointed him out to me, and this fellow just followed us right out, and that was that. As I recall, you fixed the time when you went to the mailbox, probably sometime Sunday morning. Yes, sir. Can you be any more definite as to the time Sunday morning when you were there? I'm almost 100% it was between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. Yes, sir. I have no further questions. Senator Cooper, do you have any questions? What age did the man seem to be about? Oh, about 60. I have 2 or 3 other questions. Did your organization, CUSA, ever consider violence as a means of reaching its objectives? This had been, I don't remember exactly. It had been hashed over in skull sessions. So many things come up. You talk about it and then throw it away. And these things did come up over the year or so I was involved in Munich and thrown out. No, in schedules that we had made up, we figured probable political happenings over a period of years. And we took into account there might be a war, for example, in 68 or 70 or 72. And what would happen before or after that, and who would probably be president at the time, and the type of action America would take, but it had never gone away any further than a lot of supposition. Did you consider the advertisements in the paper there as possibly inciting to violence under the circumstances? Definitely not. Was that considered at all? Definitely not, at least not by me, and nobody ever mentioned it. This group of men that you have named, of which you were one who formed this CUSA with objectives both political and in business, you said, yes, sir. Was there any background of a writing or theory of any kind upon which you depended? Where did it come from? You're putting me in sort of a box, but I will answer you. We read, for example, I did not know I was conservative until I got to Germany. I just knew how I felt, but I never identified myself with any particular political leaning. I thought I was a Democrat, an independent voter, and an independent thinker. For example, I voted for Kennedy in 60, and I would have voted for him again in 64, but this is neither here nor there. We were not asked. We had a list of required reading. In other words, if you're going to expound the conservative philosophy, we figured you should know something about it, a little bit of background aside from your own personal feelings. So we read, for example, I didn't. I never did find the time to do it. Some of the fellows read Conscience of a Conservative by Barry Goldwater. One or two books that Barry Goldwater had written, and Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, which I did not read. Did the others read them? I guess Larry read them because he suggested these. There were many times when I said yes, I yesed him to death and did as I pleased, and this is one of the cases. That was about the extent of your reading background. Not completely. In other words, I cannot pinpoint any specific volumes that I read for the specific purpose of giving me a certain background. In other words, I am motivated personally by my own feelings in the situation, and the particular dogma that you might read in a book does not interest me too much. As one of your aims, did you have the purpose of making some money out of this movement? Out of the movement itself, no. Out of the business, yes. Because I think it would be foolish to go in on the premise that we would devote ourselves 100% to politics and that we could make money at it because there are laws against it. And in order to survive while you are in politics, you have to have a business interest managed by yourself part-time or by others full-time that can support you while you devote yourself to politics. Was this business interest to be these organizations which you were going to infiltrate and whose treasuries you might capture? No. Or was it to be you hope to develop business because of your political influence? Was that it? Yes, to put it straight on the record, we had discussed this. And we would do if we came into any treasuries of these organizations. We felt that you can incur a lot of legal problems if you're caught taking funds, tax-free funds, and using it for personal gain and so forth. I'm sure there are laws against it. Exactly which ones I do not know. I am sure there are laws against it. And so we felt there is nothing wrong, and it is done occasionally in government where occasionally you would meet someone politically because generally these are more affluent individuals, people in politics. By dint of their drive, they have acquired property or monies, etc., and these individuals might be willing to invest some of their capital in some up-and-coming young businessmen, young politicians, and we had hoped to get some money this way, plus the fact by using our heads, by setting up businesses on our own that would support us in the political goal. Did you study methods of propaganda? Methods of propaganda? No, we had discussed ways of bringing about recruitment and so forth in the way of pamphlets or things of that nature, but this never got out of the talking stage itself, as a matter of fact. You felt the way to move into political life quickly was to get into these extreme organizations, which you would use a great deal of propaganda and are against these things. Yes, in general, we thought these organizations, because they grew so quickly, would be relatively unorganized and easy to infiltrate, and this proves to be quite true. They were more or less autonomous with their own regions, and they did not have a national director keeping tabs on everything they did. I have something here that was made up. It's just a list. I just happen to remember publicity tactics, for example, rallies, hangings. These are effigies, I would imagine, demonstrations, picketing, sit-down stickers, billboards, etc. That was your program? This was our advertising program, yes, sir. Some of these activities were certainly activities carried on by political parties, but did it ever occur to you that some of these activities which you planned, in fact, which you undertook, such as infiltration into organization to try to seize control of it, and these methods that you used, do you consider that as in the regular spirit of our system of government? I would say this, sir. The democratic system that you spoke of. Well, it was a question of doing something like that or absolutely nothing at all. Never getting off the ground. And while my belief would be, no, of course not. This is not the way you do it. This is not the way it should be done. But it was expedient at the time to do it. And plus the fact that you certainly could not make these organizations any worse than they were. And as far as I felt, if we could bring them around to our way of thinking or my way of thinking, we could have brought them around to where they were more beneficial to the country rather than detrimental to it. I noticed on the list that you had their techniques was hangings. Now you said you added, I think, that this meant the hanging in effigy, you assume. Is that right? Yes, I'm 100% sure, Your Honor, that this is what it was meant. In other words, this was just ways to attract attention, and the college students are doing it all the time. It was just sort of tossing it all in a pot and then putting it down on paper. Is that not provocative to violence? No, I think in the context that we meant it, that it was just another way of getting possibly some publicity. Like if the students in a university do not like their professor, for example, or if they win a football game, they will hang the opposing team in effigy or the captain or what have you, and it attracts a certain amount of publicity and talk. We had to gain recognition in order to accomplish some of the goals that I had stated previously, and this is just another way. In this case, you have to consider us as young men, and effigy hanging, is just part of a young idea. I think that's all. Thank you very much, Mr. Weissman. And they wrap up the hearing at this point. So Mr. Weissman ultimately seems like a dead end, right? And I think he is. Did Jack Ruby or Samuel Ruby chase him at the post office on that morning? Who knows? We'd have to fit it into the schedule. Most unlikely. But yeah, so Mr. Weissman, his activities very much scream of intelligence. And why, I don't know. But ad was just, the whole thing seems ridiculous, right? A whole bunch of activity for no reason. That's just like all the stuff with Fred Lee Chrisman and all the businesses he started in the fronts. We don't really understand what the hell was going on. The same thing with Mr. Weissman. What the hell was going on with this? This is a provocateur activity, right? The inclusion of this ad in the newspaper was purely a provocateur activity. And provocateurs come from the CIA, right? So, but all right, it's going to wrap it up for us today, and we'll be back tomorrow with something else. Not sure what yet. If you have any suggestions, what you'd like to hear about tomorrow, shoot me an email, Corey@CoreyHughes.org, and I will address that. So, it's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you.